Yo, so today I'm going to be breaking down two hyperpop loops that I made that I think were pretty cool. One of them's more ambient and one of them's more aggressive. So I'll leave the timestamps in the description so you can skip to whichever one you want to hear. Alright, so we're going to start off with the ambient one. I like this loop a lot. I made it earlier today. So it sounds like this. So it's pretty cool. And I did like a bunch of crazy panning on the vocals and the lead and everything. So the sound I started off with was this pluck. And this is in the major scale. It's in G minor, I think. And I just have the bass notes going up the scale and progressively getting like a little bit faster and faster just to create some energy. Then I just clicked around in the scale and found notes that sounded good together and made like really full sounding chords. So like the plucks start like in the C and the chord of it ends like almost at C6. So it has a lot of like range to it, so it sounds really full. And then I went and I added notes like these in between the chords just to make them transition into each other, because these two chords sounded really good going into each other. Let me see it. Let me pull up this tool here. So those sounded pretty good going into each other, but then this one, it still sounds good, but I wanted a little bit of a transition there, so I added this E5 just to like make it like roll into one another, make it more smooth. And then I got a little bit more complex with it here, and I added it on the first chord along with a bunch here because it gets sped up here. So that's pretty much it for the chords of it. And then I went in and I just did a simple top line doing these three notes, and then I did that up an octave pretty much. So it's like an arpeggiator pretty much. You're just arpeggiating a chord, but it's called like a broken chord or something. I don't really know the terms, but it sounds good. And then I did that same kind of thing where I have a C because this chord, the top note is a B, so to go B, C, D, and it just like leads really nicely into one another. Just trying to make it as smooth as possible. And then I pretty much just repeated that over here, but I took out like this note because there was already these like transition notes here, so I didn't want to complicate it too much. Then I copied that over another 4 bars, and I didn't do anything to it. Then I copied it over another 4 bars, and I just duplicated the chords up an octave, so when I arrange it, there's that second option of just not having this melody. And for the sound selection, I chose a really spacey pluck. It's the Hills pluck. And this is what the whole pattern sounds like. So that's a pretty good pattern to start off with. And then since that's more of like a spacey ambient kind of pluck, I wanted a pluck with a little bit of like a like harder beginning. So I went into Serum again, and it's from Analog Labs 2 or something, which didn't make sense. Analog Dreams Vintage Presets. It's just a cool pluck, and it follows the chords without the transition notes, but I did leave them in for the octave up copy. So then this sits under that. And then here it is duplicated up an octave. So it's just a nice like kind of like it has way less attack than the first pluck, so it like hits right when so I'll play those two plucks together real quick, just so you can see how they kind of like mesh together. So they work really nicely with each other. Then at this point, I felt that the melody really didn't have enough like high end, and it kind of sounded like muddy a little bit. So I added this mallet from Serum. And I originally had this pattern on the pluck pattern, but I took it out and just left it for this pattern. And it just, I don't know, I just kind of messed around until something sounded good. But yeah, here it is. And that just copies the entire thing. And I kind of use this like faster melody as kind of like a riser almost. I'll show you what I did in the arrangement here, but then I did it up an octave for like the variation part. Yeah, so I really like that sound. It's the Dreams mallet from that same Sunboy kit. That kit's really good, or Bank or whatever. But then in the arrangement with this pluck, I have this automation, so it plays these 9 bars, but it slowly fades in, so it's kind of like a riser, because I wanted the drums to hit here. So it's quiet, and then it goes to the volume that I mixed it at. Alright, so now we're going to get into the part of the melody that I really think like changed it, because if I just left it like this, it would have sounded alright, but this really like changed it up. Well, what I did here. But I made this lead pattern, and it's really simple and spaced out, and then I just flipped this up an octave here instead of it being down there. That's the only variation, and I'm pretty sure it just copies some of the notes in each of the chords. Yeah, so it's a really simple pattern, and that's the fast lead and the adapt volume 2. I left these the Vox and the lead pattern super like open and empty, because I know I wanted to duplicate it and record it and add a bunch of effects, which is what I did there. So for the Vox, I just pretty much made it stutter and then go down the scale, and then stutter and then go up the scale, just over and over, kind of like a wave. I know that's like called call and response or something, but I'm not really sure. I don't really know that many like technical stuff like music theory. Not yet. I'll learn it someday. But here's this pattern. It's the retake box from the adapt kit, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so that just repeats over one more time there. And I'm going to play it with the lead so you can see how they sound together. It honestly sounds pretty bad when it's like just them together, but it sounds alright in the whole melody. But right here, that's what really sounds good. But yeah, here that is. Yes, that stacks really nicely on top of each other. So now I'm going to get into the mixing of it before I do that, because that's mostly mixing. But basically I just took the lead and the Vox and put them here and then recorded them out, made one of them unique and pitched it up an octave and reversed it, and then lowered the volume. And then I did a bunch of crazy effects, but it turned out like this. So it's really cool. Wait, so now I'm gonna do the mixing. Yeah, I messed my words up, my bad. But for the pluck, I cut the low end completely. And then I went in and I saw what areas it was like super harsh or peaking at, and I lowered those slightly and boosted where it needed to be. Like I said earlier, it was kind of lacking high end, so I boosted like the mid-ish highs. I don't really know. Yeah, it's kind of in that area. And then lowered like the really tinny sounding stuff, so it ended up sounding like this. So now it's just a little bit cleaner. Nothing really that like in depth to go over. And then I added a delay on it, probably the ping pong one. That's the one I always use, but I turned it a little more than halfway down. and then just boosted it up on the imager so it fills up the whole like stereo spectrum. Then for the vintage, I guess, pluck, I did the same cut on the lows, and then I cut the highs completely because the first pluck was kind of taking up right here and it was lacking here and here. So I boosted this a little bit and then I took all this out because I knew the lead would fill up this area right there. And then I put the plugin called the magic switch on it, turned it halfway down. It's kind of like a chorus and a flanger put together. It's free, you should go grab it. It's a really good plugin. So for the mallets, there was actually some weird noise happening down here. So I cut out all the weird frequencies and the super high frequencies too, just to have it isolated right there because that's what the first plucks were missing. And then I actually took some of that out right there. I don't even know why, it sounded good though. And then I put a delay on it, but I turned it like pretty much all the way down. And then y'all gotta grab this plugin, it's so fire. It's called Pancake and it pans it from like left ear to right ear. There's like a ton of different presets in here, but I used the gentler one. So it like really gently pans it from your left ear to your right ear just to make it feel really spacey. So it does that as the volume automation is going up and it sounds really cool. Then for the Vox and the lead, I panned them slightly to different sides just because they were in the same frequency and I needed to create some kind of like division between them, I guess. I don't know, I always usually do that when there's two sounds that are kind of clashing together. But on the lead, I just took out the frequencies that were super duper harsh and then put a chorus on it, turned it half the way down. It's the default preset. And then for the Vox, I did the same thing as the mallets where I cut out all like the weird frequencies that were like oddly low. I don't really know how they got there, but it was there. And then I did pretty much the same thing. I boosted where I took out of the lead and I took down here because it was kind of weird sounding. So I just took it out. Then I put this reverb called Ambient. This is another free plugin. And it has some really like crazy reverbs in it, but it's not going to show me what preset I used, but I used this and I turned it a quarter way down and it sounds really nice. Oh, I forgot to add this, but I added a sub bass. It just follows the bass line, so there's really not much to talk about, but I just cut all the highs out because it's a sub bass and it should play the low notes. It's kind of obvious. All right. So here is where that vocal and lead combo sounds really nice. So this is the version with no pitching done to it. So it's like at the same octave. I didn't pitch it up one. And I put Shaper Box on it, which is, in my opinion, one of the best plugins right now. You can get some crazy filter stuff like this. And it just completely changes your sound and it's crazy. You should go grab it. You can get a free demo. That's what I have. And then, so if I have this turned off, that lead and Vox sounds like this. So just normal, right? Except with like the reverb and the imager. But if I add the Shaper Box, it just sounds crazy. Like, I don't really know how to explain it. You should just go get the plugin and try it out. But it's really cool. Then for the vocal and lead thing that is pitched up an octave, I added a ton of reverb, turned the size up, added a ping pong delay and turned it halfway down. And then I used the same Pancake plugin, but I did the way harsher one. So it really like strictly goes ear to ear. And it's not like, oh, it's kind of over there, but like it's in one of the ears only. So yeah, that's pretty much the ambient melody that I did. So I'll play like half of it because I don't want to waste too much time. And then I'm going to go into the more aggressive synthy melody. Alright, so let's get into this more like aggressive and synthy melody. I actually put drums on this, but not in this FLP, in a different one. But the drums turned out crazy, so maybe I'll play that at the end, or I already played it in the intro or something. But this one sounds like this. You probably already heard it, but it's cool. Yeah, so this is like a crazy melody. I've been going for this style for a long time, and I finally like kind of figured out how to do it. So for the first pattern, it's pretty much like almost the same principle as a couple other videos I did, where you have just basic, like you have the bass line and then you copy it down one, and then you just keep adding top lines until it seems full enough. So really for these kind of melodies, I would just like kind of think of the direction you want to go. So like right here, I was thinking I want to go up to meet this chord. That probably doesn't make sense, but like that's how I think about it. So I just kind of focused everything to go down and then up and then back down and then up, kind of like a wave, like the Vox pattern in the other melody. So this is basically, I did this all by like feeling pretty much. And then I went on top of it and added these super repetitive notes just to like add a ton of rhythm and just drive the melody and make it seem a lot faster than it is. Because this is a lower BPM than the other melody, but it sounds way like crazier, faster, whatever. And then I went on and I did these top notes here, and it just stutters and then goes down, and then like this little dip and then goes back up and does the same thing. Then I copied that over and got rid of the fast repetitive notes, so it has a little bit more room to breathe. And then I copied it over again and just left this and put it up an octave. Pretty much the same thing as the other melody. It's just something I've been trying to do lately to like make it a little bit more unique and have more parts to work with. So for this melody, I used a synth sound from Serum. It's the Dawn synth from the Adapt Volume 2. And it sounds like this. It's just kind of crazy. So yeah, it's a pretty simple pattern if you just break it down into layers. It looks really complex though. For the second sound, I just duplicated that same pattern over, and I just used like a different synth. So I went in and used, I think it's the Queen synth. Yeah, from that Sunboy bank that I was using earlier. And it's like wobbly kind of, so it adds a nice contrast to like kind of the softness of the first one. Yeah, so it's the same pattern. It just kind of sounds like wacky and a little bit more like hard, I guess. Like it has a little bit more distortion on it. So I'll play those two synths together by themselves real quick. Yeah, so these two sounds pretty much fill up the whole melody and kind of just drive it throughout the beat, and the rest of the sounds are accent notes. Pretty much. Not really, but kind of like that. I didn't add this next, but I figured it's good to have after the main melody, but it's a bass from Serum. It's like kind of like an 808 mixed with like a signed sub bass. I don't really know, but it sounds like this. So it just copies that over twice more. And then the first like counter melody or like top line I added was this. I don't even remember what this sound is. All right, so it's another synth, but more kind of like a synth pluck. And I just have it going up and following those repetitive notes that were in the other pattern, and then going down here. And I think I just clicked these in by ear just so it sounded nice. So I'll play this pattern. And then gradually, as the melody progresses, it gradually changes. So then these notes get shifted up, and then it just like there's slight little differences that'll make like a bigger impact when you hear it like all in one big stretch. Yeah, so it's just a nice little accent to the other two synths, and it's a little bit higher pitched. All right, and then the first lead sound I added is it's a stock serum sound. It's called Hypersaw in the lead, or maybe it's in the synth section, but it really is a lead. And I just have it going down the scale, and I don't really remember, but you should probably turn your headphones down because it's probably really high pitched. Never mind, it's fine. Yeah, so it does the same thing as like the synth pluck I used, how it gradually changes over time. So these notes get shifted up an octave when the C6 is still a C sharp 6, and then it all gets shifted up an octave for the last 4 bars. So the final sound I added was this pluck. It kind of does the same thing as the mallet I used in the other melody, but it kind of acts as a riser, or just like a fast-paced melody pretty much. Yeah, and again, it does the same thing as the other melodies where it changes throughout. So there really isn't any like crazy like arrangement things. Everything just pretty much comes in and out of the loop. But for the mixing, I think I left it mostly dry because the sounds were pretty cool. But I put the synth, and I took the lows out of it just to save the 808. And then same thing with the second one. And then I actually took out some of the highs because it got really like harsh, and like that like emergency sound, like when like the tornadoes go off and it's just like one note just screeching, kind of like that kind of stuff. It's not good. Then for the synth pluck, I took out where the other synths were like sitting, because it was kind of like over here, so I took that out. And then I boosted where I cut out of the second one because it wasn't as tinny or harsh. I don't really know. I didn't do anything to the Hypersaw lead or the mallets. And then on the sub bass, I just took out every single high, just left it right here. And then I put Maximus on it, which I don't really even know why I did, but this is what I use on my 808s, just to like boost them, get them really loud. But you use this knob here to adjust, and then it just gets louder and louder. I don't really know how this works, but you're adjusting the gain. But I guess that's why it's so loud. It sounds cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. My bad if I didn't explain the aggressive synthy one too much. I made it like a week ago, so I really don't remember my thought process that too well. But yeah, let me know if you got any video suggestions. I have been making some stuff like this, like kind of ambient with vocals on it. I could do a tutorial on that if you want. I don't know, or I could just keep doing hyperpop because like it works, I guess. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a fantastic evening.